figure collections. For a good handful of years, the revolutionary force in figure entertainment.
It was an era when Toy Biz became synonymous with Marvel, Kenner with Batman, Playmates with TMNT, Corey with Topanga. The door was wide open for a toy company to become synonymous with the World Wrestling Federation. Hasbro and the WWF had separated in 1994. Just Toys was making toys, but they were bendable 4.5-inch figures. Then came Jakks Pacific, a small startup founded by Jack Friedman, a former LJN company executive. Jakks Pacific acquired the WWF license around October 1995, shortly after the company's founding. The small company of Jakks Pacific had a lot on their plate to satisfy collectors who always had demand for wrestling figures, going back to the hard rubber LJN figures. Their answer? Bone-crunching action. The first 6-inch WWF figure assortments, lasting mostly from 1996 to 1999. Bone-crunching action, or BCA for short, meant that a figure would come with bendable joints in the arms and legs, making a crunch noise when bent. The WWF bone-crunching action superstars' initial assortment included Diesel, Razor Ramon, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Goldust, and The Undertaker. These 6-inch figures had a suggested retail price of $4.99 and were on the shelves by the summer of 1996. There were 2 versions of the karting for Series 1. The line was off to a hot start, as the initial run of the first assortment had sold out almost immediately. While the figures were a hit, Diesel and Razor Ramon had left the promotion for WWF's competitor WCW at the time of the figures' run in stores. Series 2 was released in October of 1996, including repaints of Bret Hart, The Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels, as well as new figures in The Ultimate Warrior, Owen Hart, and Vader. Ultimate Warrior had a super hard-to-find variant with a white logo. To collectors' delight and dismay, finally a new ring was released for bone-crunching action figures. The bad news: the monster ring was originally made for the 8-inch LJN style figures. The following month, Jakks would release the Survivor Series box set, including repaints and re-releases of Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Goldust, and The Ultimate Warrior. A tag team series was planned as a regular assortment, but was transformed into exclusives for different outlets throughout the end of 1996. Razor Ramon and Diesel in new attires were exclusive to Puzzle Zoo. Bret and Owen Hart exclusive to KB Toys, and Shawn Michaels and Vader were exclusive to Toys R Us. 1997 would be a hot year for the toy line and the WWF. This look at Toy Fair 1997 shows a handful of new sets: Series 3, Manager Series, and Series 4. The third series included Psycho Sid, British Bulldog, Mankind, Ahmed Johnson, and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels that looked like their Series 1 figures. I'm still not sure how this one happened, but Diesel and Goldust showed up on shelves in May of 1997. This time on Superstar Series 3 karting and packaging, and not exactly the same as before. Up next on the release schedule was Manager Series 1 and Superstar Series 4 in July 1997. This set was made up of 2 packs of Paul Bearer and Mankind, Clarence Mason and Crush, The Sultan and Bob Backlund, and Sable and Mark Marrow. While a great concept, the Manager Series only lasted for 1 assortment. Superstar Series 4 received the tagline Bad Boys and came on anything but plain purple karting with bricks. This set included Steve Austin's first action figure. Also included were Jerry the King Lawler, Justin Hawk Bradshaw, Farouk, Vader, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. August 1997 saw this British Bulldog and Sid 2-pack, paired off as a KB Toys exclusive.
So these girls want a slam dance? Well... what a rock!
September brought Tag Team Series 1. Like Manager Series 1, there would not be a sequel to follow. This series included 2-packs of the new Blackjacks, Legion of Doom, the Headbangers, and the Godwins. I bet you didn't think Bradshaw would be the first wrestler in the line to receive 2 completely different head sculpts, did you? Did you? By fall, most retailers would have their products prepped and ready for the holiday rush. At this time, it's not uncommon for retailers to want their own exclusive products from toy companies for their stores to bring about more shoppers. Toys R Us had the Nation of Domination 4-pack and Championship Title 4-pack for their stores. The Championship Title 4-pack was notable for 2 reasons. It gave collectors their first set of championship belts, and a variant which calls British Bulldog the European and the European champion. Target had King of the Iron Rungs and Buried Alive playset. KB Toys carried the Triple Threat 3-pack, which featured the first Yokozuna in the line. Even the lesser-known BJ's Wholesale had a Raw as War 4-pack, but KB Toys had that too. Every store carried Superstar Series 5 and the Ringside Collection. Superstar Series 5 included Ken Shamrock, Flash Funk, Savio Vega, Steve Austin, Psycho Sid, and The Rock, Rocky Maivia. Ringside Collection was the first complete set to include figures without bone-crunching action-style body parts, though they all fit in the style and size of the other figures. November 1997 saw releases of the Monster Ring, repainted black and now marketed as the Raw as War Ring. Jakks Pacific began distributing the Best of 1997 figures, as well as Signature Series 1, rounding out the year. The Best of 1997 assortment saw 2 series, with the latter released in January 1998. What was unique to this assortment was that members of the Heart Foundation all came with removable Heart Foundation vests. The rest of the figures were re-releases of previously done figures. Signature Series 1 was the first to include printed signatures. Mankind, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Goldust, the Legion of Doom, and Triple H were all included in the first assortment. 1996 and 1997 were great years for Jakks Pacific. Within those 2 years that they were operating, they saw massive success across every major toy department. The line grew from the original 6 figures to 42 different wrestlers by the end of 1997. And unlike previous toy lines, they managed to release a set of championship belts. Not bad for a company that only had a handful of employees when they started production. But with 1998, they would see exponential growth, thanks to one man, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Let's take a quick break. Don't go away. 1998 saw the wrestling wars between WWF and WCW heat up, both on the television and in the toy aisles. WCW figures were being produced by original San Francisco toy makers, and WWF figures by Jakks Pacific.
You ready to crunch somebody's bones? I knew that you were. How's it going, Benda? You little punk. Hey, wait, shut up!
For Jakks, 42 different wrestlers saw action figures by the end of 1997. This was no small feat. But in 1998, there were over 40 different sets and series alone. With that in mind, it seemed like there was really only one WWF wrestler anyone really wanted to find: Stone Cold Steve Austin. 1997 ended with Superstar Series 5 and Best of 1997 figures. Jakks Pacific would start 1998 focusing on figures that looked like Bone Crunchers, but had more action than before. In January, collectors were treated to Stomp Series 1, which included wrestlers in military Warzone style outfits with removable accessories and weapons. These figures didn't actually have the bone crunching action like the previous figures produced by Jakks, but that didn't stop the back of the carding from showing the BCA feature. Following the trend of more non-BCA BCA figures, Slammer Series 1, which included special action features of already existing wrestling guys. Goldust, Steve Austin, Undertaker, Bret Hart, Mankind, and Farouk were included with this set. This was Bret Hart's final WWF figure. Also released in February was KB Toys' exclusive Special Edition Series 1, which included cool artwork with a name display of each figure. Yokozuna was the standout, representing his 1996 run. Another would be released in 1998 with different gear. Too Tough Series 1 more or less replaced the old managers and tag team concepts from 1997, capturing the popular duos at the time: Truth Commission, Triple H and Chyna, Goldust and Marlena, and Disciples of Apocalypse. To this day, Marlena has not had another action figure. Shotgun Saturday Night Series 1 gave collectors a reason to buy previously released characters with different attires and weapons. Included were The Undertaker, Hawk and Animal, The Godwins, Steve Austin, Savio Vega, and The Rock, Rocky Maivia. Savio had a ton of variants, usually surrounding the tush of the figure. This would wrap up all the figures for the first half of 1998. Jakks Pacific was heating up in time for the summer, with tons of new waves like Special Edition Series 2, WrestleMania 14 singles and a box set, a Grudge Match 2-pack, Attitude 4-pack, and Slammer Series 2. The second set of KB exclusives were re-releases of older figures, again, another yawn of a set. WrestleMania 14 included this super random Rock, but Shawn Michaels was another for the shelves. HBK and Triple H both came with removable vests. If any collectors missed out on the WrestleMania 14 Shawn or Austin, they were in luck because Jakks started a new bi-monthly series of figures titled Grudge Match, with this pair being in the debut set. Pretty much the same Steve Austin figure would be released yet again in the Attitude box set. The real treat for those looking to find something new: Slammer Series 2. To this day, it remains my favorite bone-crunching era set. Shawn Michaels was unimpressive, and Brian Pillman coming out nearly a year after his untimely passing was odd. Having new figures of the Patriot, Dude Love, Taka Michinoku, and Kane really made the set stand out. This remains the Patriot's lone 6-inch figure. I honestly cannot overstate how difficult it was to find this Kane in stores. I never found Kane, but my friend did, and he loved to rub it in. Damn it, Michael! I'd get my revenge, but we'll circle back to that in the next chapter. The following month saw 3 more releases: Stomp Series 2, Underwater Siege, another Grudge Match, and WrestleMania 14's 3-packs exclusive to BJ's Wholesale. September was a solid month, bringing in 4 new series and an exclusive set. Ringside Collection Series 2 came out around this time, giving collectors their first opportunity to buy a Jim Cornette and Jim Ross. One of the major collecting mysteries: who is Tony and why is he on Jim Ross's jacket? Kidding. This War Tony production error would be corrected in the next wave of shipments to retailers. Commissioner Slaughter, Honky Tonk Man, Vince McMahon, and a referee were included in the Series 2 of Ringside Collection. Too Tough Series 2 was another great set, giving collectors almost all first-time figures in BCA style. Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, Kurgan and Jackal, and Kama and D-Lo. It was rumored that Chainsaw Charlie would have his first action figure in this series alongside Cactus Jack, but the Hardcore Legends pack was replaced with Brian Christopher and Jerry Lawler. Another grudge match with re-released figures was available to collectors along with Livewire Series 1. Vader received a paint app correction, making it the most accurate Vader figure. Chyna was slightly different than her previous figure, and Mankind was pretty much a Superstar Series 3 figure with a ladder. However, Undertaker, Steve Austin, and Ken Shamrock were noteworthy, coming with their stomped figure heads. This Stone Cold head, though. Ugh. By this time, collectors had to be wondering where the main line of BCA superstars went. I'm guessing sales numbers weren't as strong as Jakks hoped for Slammers, Stomp, and other gimmicks. Superstars were reintroduced with Series 6, which finally gave updated molds for Triple H, Owen Hart, and Mark Merrow. New figures of Mark Henry, Steve Blackman, and Jeff Jarrett were welcomed additions. Exclusives were the name of the game back then. Mick Foley's Triple Threat 3-pack, including this amazing Cactus Jack with 2 repacks. Ultimate Collection 4-pack, and a Slammer's autograph set. Good luck finding the Sears and JCPenney exclusives. Signature Series 2 is available next, including facsimile signatures on figures of Shawn Michaels, Dude Love, New Age Outlaws, Undertaker, and Kane. Billy Gunn had a knee pad variant. Dan Severn's first action figure would be available in this Grudge Match 2-pack, also released the same month. Speaking of Grudge Match, this action figure magazine mentioned the possibility of a Mike Tyson and Steve Austin 2-pack. Could you imagine? Box sets galore would have made it a challenge to keep up with all the new products, and that's what happened around this time. This Undertaker is the first to include tattoos, and the only pallbearer released in the line without makeup on his face. Collectors who are ready to toss their monster rings were finally able to do so with the release of the Attitude Ring. This ring was significantly smaller than the monster ring, had molded posts for easy assembly, and even included the fence-style cage. The ring was a must at the time, a real game changer. It also had catapults, and it could be turned into a carrying case. Come on! Stomp Series 3 would hit the shelves around November, allowing collectors to use their figures to accomplish space domination. Collecting 2 male figures in this set would assemble or build a vehicle. Another grudge match was available in Mark Merrow vs. Steve Blackman, but both are the same from Superstar Series 6. Again, more exclusives for the holiday madness. Walmart had BTA Series 1, another figure paired with Accessory Series, with Farouk, Dude Love, Kane, and Triple H, but also updated attires for figures of Vader, 8-Ball and Chains, and Shawn Michaels, who is wearing his WrestleMania 14 gear. Toys R Us had to have won retailer with the most exclusive box sets in time for Christmas. No Holds Barred 3-pack, Bad to the Bones, and Off the Mat, which, like the Championship Title Series box set the prior year, was packed with title belts. The figures included new head sculpts with updated World Championship, Intercontinental, and Tag Team Championship title belts. No love for the European title? What about the European? That wouldn't be all, because Toys R Us would also carry the best of 1998 assortments. A Best of Tag Team series was also on the pegs with Legion of Doom, New Age Outlaws, and the Headbangers. December 1998 was a surprisingly quiet month, giving collectors a chance to catch up on all the figures that had been released. Meyer carried an exclusive DX box set, but all interested retailers would carry the Luna Vachon vs. Sable grudge match set. This would be the only way to grab a Luna Vachon, and would be the last new release of 1998. 1998 was when wrestling fans became glued to their TVs on Monday nights. While Jakks Pacific was eager to pump out the most popular star in this period, 28 different wrestlers would get their figures for the first time in 1998. And 61 different WWF characters throughout the year overall, the most of any year of BCA. 1999 would introduce more new characters, but would be a year of transition for wrestling collectors, with major changes to the WWF and WCW figure lines. (1999) was the year WWF began to achieve dominance in the wrestling war against World Championship Wrestling. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and DX were becoming as established as the old school wrestlers in WCW. And at retail, Jakks Pacific's WWF bone-crunching action style figures would continue into 1999. Now with a new competitor making WCW figures on the shelves. The bone-crunching action style figures debuted in 1996. And 1999 would be the final year as the central WWF toy line. Would the pressure from the new wrestling figure competition prompt the change? What was available in BCA form at the height of the Attitude Era? How did I get petty revenge against the child who teased me about having a Kane figure? We'll answer these questions and more in this chapter of BCA figure history. January 1999 started with Superstar Series 7, a contest mail-away attached to the series, Shotgun Saturday Night Series 2, a Cable Bill exclusive, that's right, and a Grudge Match 2-pack. Superstar Series 7 included first-time figures for the majority of the set. Dr. Death Steve Williams, Edge, X-Pac, Val Venus, and megastars The Undertaker and Steve Austin, which were upgrades from the 1998 figures. This set would include a contest insert, offering a chance at a mail-away Steve Austin figure. Shotgun Saturday Night Series 2 would be an interesting set, with Kane, New Age Outlaws, Shawn Michaels in chaps and ring gear even though he hadn't wrestled in almost a year, Sable, and a short-haired Jeff Jarrett. Does this mugshot look familiar to you? It should, because it's literally a repainted Owen Hart head from Superstar 6. Way to go! If you were wise enough to order Royal Rumble 1999 and send your cable bill as proof to the WWF, by May, you would have received the special edition Steve Austin and Vince McMahon figures. One request per household, please. The other set from January, Grudge Match with these two, featuring a Slammer-style Taka and a Best of 98 Brian Christopher. For February 1999, 2 more Grudge Match sets would be released, and one would feature updated carding. Sticking with February, at Toy Fair 1999, Jakks Pacific would show buyers and media their new playset, a large Titantron entrance stage, but we'll have more on that later. It was a busy month for those who had to have everything. You could build your collection fast with box sets like Fully Loaded and Judgment Day, but also Too Tough Series 3, Signature Series 3, Special Edition Series 3, Livewire Series 2, Fully Loaded Series 1, and Toy Fair Magazine's first wrestling exclusive with Steve Austin. Who could have stayed on top of all these releases? The Fully Loaded box set included these 4 familiar-looking figures: But Judgment Day's set came with a referee-style Vince McMahon and a commentator set, which were still pretty hard to come by. Wait a minute, have I not covered the Grapple Gear weapon sets yet? Stay tuned, I spent all my allowance making this video.
Oh man! What the hell?
Too Tough Series 3 included Kane with the first corporate-style Mankind, the first and only LOD 2000 that came with helmets, Nation of Domination style Owen Hart with The Rock, and yet another Undertaker with Steve Austin. Signature Series 3's bright spot was Jacqueline's only figure. The Jacqueline and Dr. Death from Superstars Series 7 are still on clearance at Toys R Us to this day. KB's Special Edition Series 3 was another series of repackaged figures. I thought these were supposed to be special. Livewire Series 2 included basically Superstars Series 7's Val Venus and X-Pac, also The Rock, Shawn Michaels, and finally different figures of Mark Marrow and Mark Henry, though only slightly different. Fully Loaded would also be released on WrestleMania 15 packaging. This would have been the only way to grab Al Snow, but the rest of the figures are repainted figures, now with accessories. Quick sidebar, remember how I mentioned in the 1998 chapter that my friend Mike would tease me about owning the impossible to find Kane figure? Well, one day Mike came over and saw an Al Snow trading card that I had put in a picture frame with the rest of my family photos. I might have told Mike that Al Snow is my uncle, and thanks to my family playing along, he bought it. He probably still thinks Al Snow is my uncle. I'll circle back to Uncle Al when we get to his Road Rage figure. March 1999 would be just as eventful as February, with box sets, singles, 2-packs, and even 3-packs. Box sets available at this time were Over the Edge and this Grapple Gear set with Steve Austin. KB's Special Edition Series 4 would have a new color scheme for its packaging, but don't let it fool you, that was the only thing special about it. Sunday Night Heat could be found at Target with these 6, which of course included Steve Austin and his most recognizable t-shirt. Tag team sets, and this bag Steve Austin, limited to 10,000 pieces, were available in time for WrestleMania 15. While re-releases, these were the Headbangers' last figures. These Grudge Match 2-packs also made it out with WrestleMania 15 packaging. And finally, the Undertaker and Paul Bearer Special Edition set. April 1999 was calm, only a rock-bottom Grapple Gear set, and Toy Fair magazine's exclusive Undertaker. The next month would offer quite a bit more. Breakdowning Your House, DTA Series 2, another Grapple Gear set with Steve Austin, and a grudge match with X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett. D'Lo Brown would get a much-needed figure update with Breakdowning Your House series, even though it was kinda terrible. Just a repainted Vader body and not the best head likeness. Droz' first action figure, Goldust with a robe, and another Mankind, X-Pac, and Steve Austin were also released. Let's face it, DTA Series 2 is notorious for one reason. It's not for the first Steve Blackman in wrestling attire, Edge in bright colors, Al Snow with head, an odd Jeff Jarrett, or Undertaker with a shovel. It's notable because it included Owen Hart's last figure as the Blue Blazer. Unfortunately, it's just a repainted Patriot head on a Bret Hart body, but the figure came with a beautiful cape. There was nobody better in the ring than Owen Hart. The little-known Whites magazine would have exclusives to their subscribers, with the Sable and Undertaker, each limited to 5,000 pieces. Sable, for whatever reason, was sold with her stomp-style attire and would be her final action figure ever. Also available in June was Superstar Series 8 and Too Tough Series 4. Series 8 had a very corporate theme, with The Rock, Kane, Ken Shamrock, and first-time BCA-style figures for Commissioner Michaels, Big Boss Man, and Shane McMahon. Boss Man would also be seen in a 2-pack with Steve Austin for Too Tough Series 4, which included yet another Billy Gunn and Val Venus, The Rock and Sock Connection, and Undertaker with Kane. The second half of 1999 would launch in a big way. Are you ready? I said, I'm not really gonna do it. These 3 series, all of which had SummerSlam 99 carding. Also, Raw is War, Special Edition Series 5, King of the Ring 3-packs, and 2 more grudge match packs. Jakks was definitely taking the quantity over quality approach in the height of the Attitude Era. No one really needed these Raw is War figures, other than maybe this camo-styled Steve Austin. Special Edition Series 5 didn't have any bright spots. It was all re-released figures on new carding. At least new characters and updated figure molds would come with some of the SummerSlam 99 branded series. Fully loaded Series 2 included a Steve Austin, Rock, X-Pac, and Road Dogg, and Shane McMahon with a cloth X-Punk shirt. Also, Test's first action figure. For anyone who missed the first Draw's release, he could be found in Deadly Games along with a bunch of repainted figures, including this must-have tie-dye shirted Oddities Kurgan. Series 9 was the final numbered Superstar series, as the new figure body style called Titantron Live would be announced around this time. It wasn't all bad news, because this series included first-time figures for Christian, Gangrel, Paul White, and Bob Holly. Jakks would try to give collectors a reason to buy these 2, with Undertaker now coming with a removable robe, and Vince McMahon with a removable suit. Those hucksters would only give us the front of his suit. Come on now, where's the back? The primary Superstar series wouldn't see another release, but that certainly wouldn't be the end of bone-crunching action, at least not yet. Four more box sets would be released in August. A Grapple Gear set with Mankind, Last Man Standing 4-pack, Raw is War 4-pack, a signature Steve Austin with a kid-sized belt, and also these unusual 4-packs. Also available DTA Series 3 and 2 more grudge match packs. DTA Series 3 and Road Rage both came out pretty close to the same time, and included the Godfather's first action figures. DTA Series 3 wasn't a memorable one, with X-Pac, Triple H, Ken Shamrock, Steve Austin, and Christian. Road Rage also included an updated Test, Bob Holly with a couple variants, The Rock, and Gangrel. DTA 3 Christian and Road Rage Gangrel did have blood splatter on their shirts, which was pretty racy at the time. Now is probably the best time to bring up a little controversy. Near the end of 1999, a university professor was wandering the aisles of Walmart and saw this Al Snow figure packed with head. She complained to Walmart, saying it sends a bad message to her kid to see a figure packed with what she thought was a severed head. Walmart obliged and had the figure pulled from the shelves. Well, if she was such a big-brained university professor, she would have known that this was not the first time Al Snow was packed with his mannequin head. Too Tough Series 5, which included the first Viscera and Debra figures, and 3 box sets that would be released in September. Perfect 10 would be seen in 2 different style packages. I'm still waiting for my mom to get me that Perfect 10 box set. Where's it at, Mom? Signature Series 4 would also make it out in September with new collectible figure stands, but reveal an unfortunate truth. Bone-crunching action style figures were ending. Yes, the last of the bone-crunching action era. A figure style Jakks had unveiled and used since 1996. October would be the month of box sets. While including newish figures, they'd really only be worth grabbing for the belts. Around this time, the new figure body style would debut, with Titantron Live Series 1. They were called Titantron Live, or TTL, because they worked with the new Titantron Live playset, playing one wrestler's theme music when the foot pressed down on the sensor. The remaining bone-crunching action sets, released in November and December, weren't unique enough to capture collectors' attention, with the new focus clearly on TTL. While that would be the end of bone-crunching action style at most retail, in 2000 you could mail away for these Toy Fair exclusives. You could also run into bone-crunching action figures exclusive at KB Toys, with Backlash. To collector's shock, BCA made a small comeback, with 5 different Backlash series, released between September 2000 and October 2001. The standouts of the Backlash series include Hardcore Holly, who was maybe supposed to be Crash Holly, Series 3 Triple H, Shawn Michaels in Royal Rumble 97 gear, Kane with an inverted color scheme, Kane and Undertaker with updated attires, Edge in baby blue, a couple more Al Snows, and this right-to-censor Val Venus, who uses Undertaker's shirt from the very first bone-crunching action series. What a fitting end. Yes, bone-crunching action would make another return in 2001. This time with larger parts, so they'd fit in better with the Titantron Lifestyle figures. The larger BCAs would replace the original style and take over the Backlash line for a few more series before being discontinued. Maybe one day we'll cover these in full detail, but most collectors today don't have the nostalgia for these the way they do for the original BCA run. At one point, these figures were planned but unreleased. Between WWF's BCA style figures and WCW figures, collecting truly exploded in this era. It was no longer enough to stroll into one toy store to complete your collection. With no checklists or release schedule, there was no telling what you'd find, even if you walked into every retail outlet. It's only now that we have a better picture of everything that was available. 1999 should go down as a mixed bag for collectors. It was a transitional year between 2 different styles of figures. Personally, I resisted the change. I spent a few years amassing a large BCA collection. I wasn't really sold on jumping into something else, even as a 10-year-old. That was in large part because Jakks did such an amazing job filling out the roster during the BCA years, which saw many Attitude Era stars get released in the style. Titantron Lifestyle figures would continue into the Attitude Era and be better competition for Toy Biz's articulated WCW figures. But the TTL figures didn't look quite right with the former BCA style. 1999 saw an oversaturation of BCA figures released, with differences in the figures themselves being minimal from the prior years. Perhaps that's why the average collector isn't clamoring to get their hands on most of these. Are you willing to take on the overwhelming challenge of finding hundreds and hundreds of BCA figures? I did for this series of videos, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hey, are you still with me? Good, because that wraps up bone crunching action. Shout out to vintage Jakks BCA, who did an enormous amount of research on the release dates that we used for these videos. Can't get enough bone crushing action? Check out our brand new, officially licensed Bone Crushing Wrestlers. BCA lives on with Bone Crushing Wrestlers figures. Brian Clark, Blue Meanie, Dwayne Gill, Ultimo Dragon, Sonny Ono, James Mitchell, Macho Man Randy Savage, Jeff Jarrett, and the Hardy Boys. With more coming soon. You can check them out at figurecollections.com.